UFC Fight Night, Jared Cannonier and Nasruddin Imavov from the KFC Yum Center in Louisville, Kentucky. I've actually been there before. It's actually a nice arena and there's a lot of KFC there. But anyways, Jared Cannonier and Nasruddin Imavov from Louisville, Kentucky this weekend with the UFC's Fight Night card again on June 8th. If you could notice it, my voice is really messed up. I'm still sick. So again, if you watch the channel other than the UFC content, I haven't even made an MLB video today. I'm not going to. And if you don't watch that already on the channel, go check it out. But today, again, I'm just doing the UFC video. I will try to keep it short just for my sake because I don't know how long I can really talk. But again, the last time I said I was going to cut a UFC video short, it went an hour. So I truly don't know how long this is going to go. There's 14 fights in this card. One is a rescheduled bout between Rosas Jr. and Ricky Turcios. So I'll just roll that old video when that fight does come up. But we've got Jared Cannonier and Nasruddin Imavov in the main event in the middleweight division, in a really weird division too, where Sean Strickland just beat Paulo Costa. I don't know how that was a split decision, but it's fine. Strickland just won. Duplessis Adesanya will do things in August, and then in a couple weeks in Saudi Arabia, you've got Khamzat Chimaev and Robert Whittaker. So where does the winner of this fight go, especially if it's Jared Cannonier? I don't know. We will talk about that though when we get there. Again, I will try just again so I can talk when we get to the main event to keep fights short. If I leave anything off, you can ask me in the comment section down below. I'm more than happy to type it. Right now, again, I am just really messed up, so in terms of being sick. So let's do it, folks. Tomorrow also we'll have I couldn't find a better quality picture, but PFL Europe predictions, PFL Europe 2. Again, hopefully I'm feeling better by then. I probably won't. I'll probably still be talking like that, so like this. So that video will probably be shorter as well, but that's coming at you tomorrow. And make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more MMA predictions here on the channel. Okay, let's get into it here with our first fight. We have got Tomar taking on Ryan Amanda in this fight. For Tomar, she is making her UFC debut. She is 8-4, and I'm not impressed at all. She's got one win in Matrix Fight Night, or Matrix Fight League. That's a good win. That's her only good win. She's fought before in Matrix. She's 4-0. Yeah, she beat Killer B back in 2022, but Killer B is more of a name than an actual fighter. She's 6-9 as a mixed martial arts fighter. Seriously, she was kind of the one championship Paige Van Zandt. And now Paige Van Zandt just lost her last fight to an OnlyFans girl. So again, what are we doing? But Tomar, she fought in one championship and she went 1-3 over there, lost to Killer B over there by split decision in a Muay Thai bout, but lost again 3 fights in one championship, and I really haven't been all that impressed with her. She is a strawweight at heart. She's not one of these fighters who's coming up from 105 pounds. She's been fighting strawweight for a very long time, even though she is 5'1". She's taking on Ryan Amanda, who is 14-7, another not great record. She's got 1-5 in the UFC. It's a split decision loss to Talita Alencar, who Alencar is not the greatest in her own right, but I do think Ryan Amanda is better in this fight. I think her striking is going to be better than Tomar in this one. And yes, Tomar, oh goodness, I shook my table, but yes, Tomar has won 3 straight fights by TKO. Yeah, but who has she beat? Exactly nobody. I don't really think she's all that good. I don't know what Tomar does all that well on the feet. Yeah, she can strike, but I do think Amanda is able to be here to the punch in a lot of spots here, and I understand Amanda is the primary grappler. That's how low I really consider the game of Tomar, the Indian fighter. I'm taking Ryan Amanda to win the fight because, again, I haven't even mentioned it, the ground game is going to be huge. Amanda is able to get the fight down. She's able to do it by decision. Again, my apologies if this is a shorter analysis on the pick, but again, my throat is killing me. Anyways, on to our next one. Cody Stamann taking on Taylor Lapilus in this fight. For Cody Stamann, he's been around for a while, right? 21 wins, 6 losses, 1 draw, 7-5-1 in the UFC, coming off a loss to Douglas Silva de Andrade in his last fight. He has lost 3 out of 5, but look at the guys he's lost to. Merab Dvalishvili, Saeed Nurmagomedov, and D. Silva. The 2 wins, Eddie Wineland and Luan Lacerda. Again, I'm going to have to take hacks of water as I go here, but Stamann again has only won 2 of 5. You go all the way back to another fight before that, lost to Jimmy Rivera. So really, he's 2-4 in his last 6 bouts. Yes, wins over Eddie Wineland and Luan Lacerda aren't horrible, but both fights he was over and minus 400 favored in. Eddie Wineland was a shell of his former self when he fought Cody Stamann, and Cody Stamann was able to go out there and knock him out in the first round. Now, For Stamann's opponent, you get a guy who's 4-2 in the UFC in Taylor Lapilus, right? The second run for him is 1-1. It's a win over Callan Lafran in France, and then another loss, or just a loss, to Farid Basharat in the UFC Apex of all places by unanimous decision. Lapilus is not bad. This fight will come down to if he can stuff the takedowns of Cody Stamann. Yeah, like, don't get confused about how Stamann's fought, and, you know, in some of these recent fights, even the De Silva fight, again, Stamann's primary way of winning fights and the way he wants to win fights are going to be on the ground. Even though, again, he was competitive in the De Silva fight over in in Charlotte, North Carolina. He was able to get De Silva down. He knocked him down in that fight and took him down as well. The primary objective for Stamann in every fight is to get the fight on the mat with his wrestling. That's what he's going to try to do against Lapilus in this fight. The Juan Lacerda fight, it was a stand-up fight. But again, Stamann, he's always going to go back to his wrestling base. Eddie Wineland fight, that was the one fight he did not need to use his wrestling because, again, Wineland is old, former WEC, I believe, title. I know he was a title challenger. Did he hold the belt? I don't think he did. He might have back in like 2003. Anyways, Stamann, again, the guy's been around since 2003, so Stamann, blitzed him and knocked him out. The Saeed fight, got caught coming in with a guillotine. Marab, of course, not going to be the better wrestler in that fight, and surprisingly, he was not the better wrestler in the Jimmy Rivera fight either. Lapilus, again, is not horrible. His first run in the UFC wasn't bad either. He was 3-1. He's 1-1 in the second run, and he just ran into the wrong guy in Farid Basharat. Basharat is good. He doesn't get the most finishes, but he's just a very good wrestler that's going to give a lot of guys problems. Cody Stamann is a lesser version of Farid Basharat, and I don't think Lapilus struggles as much. I think Lapilus wins the fight by unanimous decision. We're going to take two decision victories to start off this card. And again, we went 10-2 on the last card. The only losses we had were Alex Morono. He sold my parlay. And we also got Phil Rowe wrong against Jake Matthews. It is what it is. We go on to our next fight. Going back to the strawweight division, we have got Eduarda Moura taking on Denise Gomes. Now, Gomes had so much hype around her when she knocked out Yasmin Yayargi. Now, I think we all have to take a step back and consider those three younger fighters who are new to the weight class at 115 pounds, Denise Gomes, Yasmin Yayargi, and Yasmin Lucindo. How good really are they? They're all under the age of 24. Lucindo, I think, 21? Yayargi might be 22. Gomes is 24. Like, again, they're all in that, younger, age, and they gave Gomes her step up. She beats Yasmin Yayargi, and they give her Angela Hill, and that was the most Angela Hill victory ever. That's what she does. I mean, hell, she just won her last fight against Luana Pinheiro. She finally won a fight by submission in the UFC, but, again, Angela Hill is going to win those fights. She's been around. She's going to beat a fighter like Denise Gomes. Even though Gomes went in there and blitzed Yasmin Yayargi and knocked her out in 20 seconds, Angela Hill is still going to win fights like that. So now Denise Gomes gets Eduarda Moura. And now, again, I'm back to my point. How really good are Lucindo and Yayargi? Yayargi hasn't fought anybody that good since the Gomes fight. She beat Sam Hughes. Sam Hughes isn't very good. Lucindo, is coming off a win over Karolina Kowalkiewicz, but Karolina's 38. How much does she truly have left in the tank? I don't know, right? So it's really hard to gauge. And now you get Denise Gomes against Eduarda Moura, who's nicknamed Ronda, obviously after Ronda Rousey, and she's 1-0 in the UFC. It's a TKO victory over Montserrat Canello. I don't think Montserrat Canello is very good. I don't think you think Montserrat Canello is very good. Moura finished her in the second round with ground and pound. She's been very good outside the UFC. She's 10-0. I'm going to lean Eduarda Moura in this fight. I do think she's able to get the fight down, and I do think she's able to give Denise Gomes a lot of problems down there. Gomes, for being, again, this is a stereotype, I guess, of Brazilian fighters, but for being a Brazilian, she's not very good at jiu-jitsu. She's a Muay Thai fighter. She's a Muay Thai kickboxer that wants to keep fight standing as you saw in the Yayargi fight. Moura is a fighter who can strike, but does come from that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background as well, and a fighter that is more than capable of getting the fight down, either winning with her ground and pound or winning with her submissions as well. I do think Eduarda Moura wins. I'm taking her by decision again. I still don't see a finish in this fight, but I do think Moura is just able to go in there and just dominate on the ground. And again, I think Gomes is the better striker slightly, but all things considered, I'm going to stay with the undefeated fighter here in Eduarda Moura to, again, remain undefeated and win the fight. Let's Let's go on to our next one here. Another undefeated fighter. We've got Daniel Marcos, who's 15-0, taking on Sexy Mexi. Yeah, John Castaneda. Castaneda is 4-2. Now, I didn't ever think John Castaneda was really going to get to the spot. I remember when he came into the UFC, he was coming off 2 of 3 losses, and he fights Nathaniel Wood, he loses, so he was going into his second UFC fight against, again, a guy we talked about earlier, Eddie Wineland, and he lost 3 of 4. And I'm like, what are we doing? It's his second UFC fight, and he's lost 3 of 4 fights. Well, okay, here he is. He's in a spot where he's now, 4-2 in the UFC, looking for his 5th UFC win, and he really hasn't been the worst. Castaneda has been okay. I mean, back-to-back wins over Kyung Hyo Kyung and Munin Gafurov, back-to-back. He finds himself even on the money line against Daniel Marcos in this fight, and Castaneda has really brought it to these guys in terms of his striking game. His last fight against Kyung Hyo Kyung was the first one since the Nathaniel Wood fight where he didn't knock his opponent down, and even in the Kyung Hyo Kyung fight in New York, he landed 111 significant strikes. John Castaneda is not that bad. He's really putting it together. He implements his wrestling game as well, and he's able to go out there and he's able to mix it up on the feet. Now he's getting an undefeated fighter in Daniel Marcos, who's coming off the no contest against Orechi Lang, where again with the intentional groin strike, but it is what it is. The part, again, that I do question Marcos is the level of competition. Now, Marcos had a good resume outside the UFC, I thought. I thought he fought some pretty solid guys outside the UFC. Once he's got in the UFC, again, he's 2-0. Simon Oliveira win. He's supposed to win that fight. Davey Grant, I mean, again, he barely gets by Davey Grant. He beats him by split decision. Okay, good. Still undefeated coming into a fight with John Castaneda. I think it's an incredibly close fight. Obviously, that's what the books have it as well. He was winning the fight against Orechi Lang before it was stopped, obviously. The Grant fight, I think he probably lost the fight, but they gave it to him by decision. Simon Oliveira fight, of course, he finished him. How is he going to be able to keep up with the pace of John Castaneda? I don't know. I genuinely just don't know how Marcos responds to that. Because Castaneda is going to blitz him. Castaneda is going to get in his face. How will Marcos, again, deal with that game? I don't know. I tend to think that maybe Marcos's boxing, though, will be good enough in terms of his counters, in terms of working with his head movement and just finding Castaneda crashing in to the point where he can check him and he can drop him. Castaneda has been knocked down before, only once, but still, Daniel Santos did it in a losing effort for Castaneda, where again, Santos was able to finish him in a fight where earlier in the fight, Castaneda dropped him. So the fight's incredibly close. When you look at takedown defense, and again, it probably looks like I'm struggling to get through this video. I am. My voice is dead. I'll stop bitching, but still. Daniel Marcos, 89% takedown defense rate so far in the UFC. Again, that's a big part of Castaneda's game. He's able to mix it up a lot. He's able to give a lot of guys a lot of problems with that. Because, again, we say it all the time, your wrestling makes your striking better. When there's a threat of a takedown, again, you're always going to be aware of that, and that's how a guy like Castaneda can catch you up top. I think Marcos is good enough to keep the fight standing and really not make it too much of an issue. So with that being said, I'm going to take the undefeated fighter. I'm going to take Daniel Marcos to win the fight by decision. I think Castaneda has got an incredibly great chance to win the fight, but I'm taking Daniel Marcos to do it by decision. To our next one here, we have got Brad Katona taking on Jesse Butler. I don't know why this fight's happening. I can say it right away. We're taking Brad Katona. This is the first fight where it just feels like, what are we doing here? Now, will Katona get a finish? It's not what Brad Katona does, right? If there was ever a fight where Brad Katona could win it by finish, it would be this one. The guy hasn't finished a fight since 2021. And that was like 8 fights ago for him, right? Look what he's done since. He beat Gamzat Magomedov in Brave. It got him in the Ultimate Fighter again. Or no, not again, but got him back to the Ultimate Fighter and a chance to... Oh, no, he wasn't the Ultimate Fighter. Oh, he did win. I forgot. He beat Bryce Mitchell. I forgot he was the Ultimate Fighter. Anyways, he's a 2-time Ultimate Fighter winner, right? The first guy to do it, right? He beats Carlos Ferreira. He beats Timur Valiev. Did he win that fight? I don't know. It's close. And then he beats Cody Gibson to win the Ultimate Fighter. But then he loses to Garrett Armfield over in Canada, UFC 297 in January. Now, again, Jesse Butler I don't think is very good. I just don't think he is. He's a guy who was a late second fill-in to fight Jim Miller, and Jim Miller knocked him out in 23 seconds. He was booked to fight again 2 months later against Sean Woodson. Thankfully, they didn't do that. He was supposed to fight Jekka later that year. Fight didn't happen. Now you get Katona. I don't think Jesse Butler does anything extremely well. He will brawl with you, and he does have a ground game if he needs it. But I don't think the chin's incredibly there. And I just think Katona's better. Because I think Katona outclasses him on the ground. And I think Katona just really puts it on him. He, I believe, is the biggest favorite on this card. Minus 500 for Brad Katona. You're not picking against this. And I don't even think he gets a finish because if Katona was going to get a finish, he'd melt him by grappling him, right? That's how Katona would win against a guy, I'm saying, of like the caliber of Jesse Butler. My thing is, again, what does Jesse Butler do best? It's grapple, and it's stay out of spots like what Brad Katona could put him in. I'm taking Brad Katona to win the fight by unanimous decision. I don't think it's close. I think Katona dominates. Give me Brad Katona to win the fight by unanimous decision. Let's go on to our next one here. Going back to the female divisions in the 125-pound division, we have got Andrea Lee taking on Montana De La Rosa. The loser of this fight will get cut. The winner of this fight, they stay in the UFC. I mean, there's not much else I can say about that. I mean, it's not a great fight. It's not. Take your pick on a fighter who at one point was in the top 15, a fighter at one point, Andrea Lee, who was a win away from a world championship opportunity, you know, and now they're both faltering a lot. Andrea Lee's lost 4 in a row. Montana De La Rosa's lost 3 in a row. Maybe they keep Montana if she loses because she's fought Macy Barber and Tatiana Suarez. Like, maybe that's part of her losing streak. But even Lee, right? It's Araujo, Barber, Natalia Silva, Miranda Maverick. They've fought good fighters, right? So you might even get, like, the Karolina Kowalkiewicz effect with these two fighters. Because, yeah, Karolina lost a lot of fights. But then look who she lost to. Karolina lost to, off the top of my head, fighters like Alexa Grasso, Jessica Andrade, Yang Jiannam. Those are the fighters she lost to, and she bounced back. She won 4 in a row. And yeah, she just lost to Lucindo, but that's a 22-year-old who's 16 years younger than her, and a fighter who can't outpace her, right? So again, maybe it's not the end of the world for these two fighters. Maybe they're both not washed up, but you gotta think about it, right? Lee's 35. De La Rosa is only 29. I think there's more of an upside for Montana De La Rosa. And that's partially why I'm picking Montana De La Rosa to win the fight by decision. I think the upside's there. I think Montana De La Rosa has a future still in the sport. I don't know if Andrea Lee really has a future in the sport. I think De La Rosa still can give quality fights in the UFC. And the way this fight just looks at for me, Montana De La Rosa is the better grappler. She's the better wrestler, I think. Even though she hasn't landed a takedown, I know, since the Macy Barber fight, but still. I think when it gets down to it, Montana De La Rosa is going to be the better wrestler. I think the wrestling is going to play the biggest factor in this fight. I'm taking Montana De La Rosa to win the fight by decision. I don't feel great about it. I wouldn't bet money on it. Just because, again, these two fighters, the last 7 combined fights have all been losses. And again, we will talk about the losses. Miranda Maverick, Natalia Silva, Macy Barber ×2, Viviana Araujo, JJ Aldridge, Tatiana Suarez. They're not bad losses. But I'm taking Montana to win the fight. I think her wrestling's better than Andrea Lee. That might be a hot take, but again, my thing is, again, De La Rosa is 6 years younger. She's got a future in the sport. Andrea Lee, she wins. Okay, what? Are we building back up to the top 15 at 35? Montana, seriously, has 6 years to get to the point where Andrea Lee is right now. Taking Montana De La Rosa to win the fight by unanimous decision. To our next one here, we've got Charles Radtke taking on Carlos Prates. Now, you may know Charles Radtke for a word he said after winning against Blood Diamond in Australia back in 2023, where he beat him by decision, and he said, if I remember right, F all you, the other expletive word that starts with an F and ends with the G. And it so happens to be that we're in the month that, anyways. It wasn't in June, but I'm just saying we're now in June, right? So anyways, yeah, he said it. And then Manel Kopp said it later that night. He said, you and a bunch of your team, Kai France, you're a bunch of... And TC laughed and told him, get out of the octagon. Oh, Charles Radtke. He's in for a tough fight, though. He's in for a very tough fight. Carlos Prates is good. Carlos Prates is real good. This guy has got crisp striking. He comes out there to finish fights. a fight of his has not gone the distance since 2019. He's had 10 fights since then. 9 fights. Same thing. If you can count the modified rules bouts, I think it's 11. That's how good this guy is. Crisp striking. He is a sniper in there, but a sniper that hits very hard. Yes, Prates has been around. Yes, he's lost, but he has really put it together recently. Now lost a fight since one Warrior Series back in 2019 against a guy at the time who was 4-0. He's now 8-0. I think Prates is really good. I don't think Radtke's all that bad either. Like, he was able to knock out Gilbert Urbidia in his last fight in the second round with a left hook. But think about it. It's different beating Mike Mathena and Gilbert Urbidia compared to Prates, who's got out there beating Trevin Giles in his first UFC fight, and even beating a guy like Mitch Ramirez in his first fight on the Contender Series. Mitch Ramirez is in the UFC now. He fought Thiago Moises, we're going to talk about later. I think Prates is real good. I think this is where you get your first finish of the night. Regardless who wins this fight, it's going to be a finish, because if Radtke somehow is able to pull it through and win the fight, well, Chuck Buffalo from Salem, Wisconsin, training out of MMA Masters with Colby Covington in Miami, Florida, around there, he will put out Prates if he wins. He will swing big and he will connect. It's either that or Prates, again, snipes him with his precision. Usually precision beats power, but the problem is Prates has got both. This guy's very good. I do think there are ways to beat him, and I think it starts with a good grappler. I don't think Radtke's that. Okay? Radtke strikes me as a guy who will be more than willing to throw down in this fight. And that doesn't really sound good for him. Okay? I sound like I'm a smoker. I swear to God, I've never smoked anything in my life. Anyways, let's go on to our next fight. Yeah, we're taking Carlos Prates to win the fight by first round knockout. To our next one here. Thiago Moises versus Louisville Klein. I am surprised Moises is an underdog in this fight. I actually am. I would expect Moises to be the favorite. Louisville Klein comes in this one again. 5-2-1 in the UFC. He fought a very tough guy in his last fight in AJ Cunningham. Of course, the UFC will tell you the story by AJ Cunningham, over and over again. If you don't know, just look it up. It's pretty easy to find. It's probably the first thing you'll find out about AJ Cunningham. But Louisville Klein took out a tough guy in AJ Cunningham in his last fight, but a guy he's more than expected to beat. He's a minus 900 favorite going into the fight. Thiago Moises beat another guy who he was more than expected to beat in Mitch Ramirez. Again, we just talked about Ramirez, but those were guys, Moises and Klein, respectively, were supposed to beat and supposed to get back in the win column. Okay? Moises before that lost to Benoit Saint-Denis. Tough guy, really good fighter. Benoit beat him. Louisville Klein has now lost a UFC fight since his third fight in the Octagon. And his to Nate Landwehr, where he lost by Anaconda choke in the third round. I was always kind of iffy on Klein because the loss to Trezano. But he has built his way back up. The win over Ignacio Bahamondes is very good as well. And this, again, the winner of this fight, I think, will be fighting for a ranking in their next fight. So it's a huge fight for both guys, right? Moises has been trying to get back in this spot for a while. Right, he had a main event spot against the champion, Islam Makhachev, a long time ago. 3 years ago? He lost in the fourth round. I think he made it 4 rounds with Islam. And he's taking on some good guys. Joel Alvarez beat him by TKO as well. Anyways, Louisville Klein isn't bad either, though, right? 67% of voters are going with Klein compared to Moises' 33. Again, 5-fight unbeaten streak. Wins over guys like, Devontae Smith, who at one point I was high on. Mason Jones, another guy who, again, has some hype around him. He had a draw against Jai Herbert, which is kind of weird. Then Bahamondes and Cunningham as well. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough fight to pick for me because, again, Klein probably has the advantage on the feet, even though Moises' striking game is ever evolving. But the ground game definitely goes to Moises. I'm taking Thiago Moises, actually. I think Moises does have a clear advantage on the ground. I think that is where he does exploit Klein. And I get it. Klein's hard to take down. He is. But I do look at the slight success Jai Herbert had grappling with Louisville Klein, and it makes me think maybe Moises can do the same thing. I don't know. Because, again, if Moises is able to get you down, he's probably going to find his way to a submission. Jai Herbert's not entirely that, right? I'm taking Moises to win. I will take him by second round sub. Am I the most confident? No, but I'll take Moises as the underdog pick here. I do like it, again, for what it's worth, and I think Moises is able to pick up the win in this fight. Okay, to our next one here. Oh, man, it's the return of another fighter out of MMA Masters like Charles Radtke. It is Miguel Baeza. Yes, Miguel Baeza is back. Another guy who at one point in time had a lot of hype around him. There was legit hype around Miguel Baeza after his fight against Takashi Sato, but really after his knockout win over Matt Brown. He knocked out Matt the Immortal Brown, and he put him out cold, and he looked really good in doing so. And then he beats Takashi Sato at the same time where Mike Tyson was fighting, but it's okay. But then he drops one to Ponzinibbio. Tough fight, really grueling fight. He just loses it by decision. They win fight of the night. Then he gets knocked out by Chaos Williams. And then he just got knocked out by Andre Fiallo. Again, that was 2 years ago now, over 2 years ago. But what's Fiallo doing right now? Losing in UAE Warriors. That was before he went on his skid, but still, it's not great. Puna Soriano's not that great though either. Puna's lost 4 of 5. Again, he had a fight against Dusko Todorovic. I believe it's the first, is it the first? I think it is. The first UFC fight ever on ABC. It is. It was undefeated versus undefeated. 7-0 Puna Soriano, 10-0 Dusko Todorovic, and Puna won the fight by knockout in the first round. Crazy outcome. And now Dusko, still in the UFC's 3-4. I would say I think he's got a better future than Puna Soriano because I think Puna gets cut with a loss here. And ultimately, I'll give it away right now. I do think Miguel Baeza gets back on the winning track and he knocks out Puna Soriano in the first round. Now, how do we get there? Okay. Puna Soriano, look at the losses. He beats Dusko. So they say, go fight Brendan Allen. Horrible fight stylistically for Puna Soriano. Brendan Allen beats him by decision. Loses to Nick Maximov, who was undefeated at the time, no longer in the UFC now. But Maximov, from the 209, beats Puna Soriano by split decision. Puna knocks out Dachulu Giambula like he's supposed to. Loses though to Roman Kopylov and just lost to Dustin Stoltzfus, who's also on this card. Not bad names. Obviously, Kopylov just beat Cesar Almeida in his last fight. But I do think Miguel Baeza is going to be a much improved version of himself coming into this fight. The chin is completely healed. It's been over 2 years. And I do still trust the skills of Miguel Baeza. Puna hits harder, sure. But Miguel Baeza, from a tactical standpoint and from a technical standpoint too, is the better striker. So Miguel Baeza, all things considered, should win the fight. I'm taking Baeza to do it by first round knockout. Again, this in a similar sense, because I think the outcome is the same for the loser. It's like the Andrea Lee Montana De La Rosa fight. Obviously, both these guys have not been in the UFC for the lengths that those two have been in. Like Lee and De La Rosa have been in the 125-pound division for the women since its inception, right? These guys just showed up from the contender, obviously, right? But still, both guys are 31, both from pretty sizably big size, pretty sizable gyms, right? Baez from MMA Masters, Puna's from Extreme Couture. The loser, I do think, gets cut. And unfortunately, it's Punahele Soriano. I think he's a guy that Bellator/PFL will definitely scoop up. Not just because he's Hawaiian like Kai Kamaka, but if they're going to go back to Hawaii, why not put Puna on that card? Don't know why the UFC won't even try it. I understand there's difficulties with venues and shit. I slipped. I usually don't curse on the channel, but it's fine. I think Baeza wins, though, and I think we'll see Puna sometime in Bellator. Right, whenever they go back to Hawaii, I think that's when he does get another fight with them, or does get his fight with Bellator. I think that's when that happens. Okay, to our next one. Julian Marquez takes on Zach Reese. About even odds for this one, and that's what should be expected. Zach Reese has only had 7 professional fights, and he's 6-1. Okay, he's coming off a loss to Cody Brundage where he got slammed at TKO'd. I just think he needs more experience. Going into his Contender Series fight, guys, he beat a guy who was 5-10, Tommy Britton. Tommy Britton's now 5-12, and he's 35 years old. He needs, Zach Reese just still needs more experience. And yeah, Julian Marquez has lost 2 in a row, but the experience is on this guy's side. He's 34 years old. I apologize if I give him the pick. I give him the pick away right now. I'm taking Julian Marquez to win the fight, and I think he does get it done in a back-and-forth war by second-round TKO. Because that's kind of how Marquez fights. I know he was finished in both of his last fights against Gregory Rodriguez and against Marc-Andre Berriot. But he fought wars in those fights, and he lost them. I don't know if Zach Reese is able to be in that type of fight with Julian Marquez, just because I don't think he has been in that type of fight against someone of the level of talent that Marquez is. Zach Reese hasn't gotten more than 4 minutes in a fight. What's going to happen when Marquez gets him out of that first round? I don't know. That's a big question mark. So that's why I'm more than willing to bank on the fact that Marquez is able to get him out of there. Because again, stuff changes once you get going in a fight, and you got a guy like Marquez who is more than willing to walk you down and getting to a barn burner type of fight. I think it's a tough fight for Zach Reese. I really do think it is. I think it's a difficult fight for Reese. I think Marquez will walk him down. And again, I'm not putting too much in the fight with Brundage. Again, he had the submission. Brundage slammed him. Okay. It happens, right? But on top of that, he hasn't really fought anybody. The only fight that he's had against a decent guy, yeah, you can look at Aaron Phillips, who's a former, not UFC name, but a former Ultimate Fighter name. And you could also look at Eli Aronov, who was 6-0 at a fight in Bellator. We fought in the Contender Series, and he beat. I don't know if Aronov's going to get another shot in the Contender. He has not fought since that fight. Who knows? He took on a pretty decent guy in Moritz Kazuyits. I don't know. He's the guy who fought in the Contender a long time ago as well. Just fought in LFA too. I don't know. Aronov's not horrible, so maybe that's kind of why people are picking Reese. I don't know. I think Marquez wins. I just think when you look at it stylistically, Marquez, I don't think Reese gets Marquez out of there immediately. And I think Marquez does kind of drag him out. I do think Marquez ends up winning the fight, late in the second round. Again, after he puts it on Zach Reese and makes Zach Reese work. Reese will have to work late in the fight. And again, it's just tough when you get a guy like Marquez in there with you. I think Marquez wins the fight by second round TKO. Let's go into our next one here. Bruno Ferreira taking on Dustin Stoltzfus. It's a clash of styles. This is what this fight is, right? I didn't switch the graphic. It's a clash of styles, right? Stoltzfus is the grappler. Bruno Ferreira is a striker. It's a complete clash of styles. Stoltzfus is still around. I was surprised they kept him around in the UFC after starting 1-4. Right, lose to Abus Magomedov over in Paris, but then he beats Puna, right? We just talked about. So it is what it is. He now gets Bruno Ferreira, the Hulk, who's 11-1. His only loss is to Nurulson Ruzboyev, who I expected so much more out of when he fought Joaquin Buckley, and he could have saved us from the embarrassment that Joaquin Buckley is putting on himself since that fight. It's embarrassing what Joaquin Buckley is doing. It's horrible, but it is what it is. Like what is the guy doing? He's calling out GSP. He's calling out Bisping. I think he called out Bisping at some point. He called out Connor. Again, he did that during the fight. He's calling out Holland again, and that's not a horrible fight, actually. But anyways, I don't know why he's doing it. Bruno Ferreira, though, right, lost to Ruzboyev, but then came back and knocked out Phil Haas, who, again, would be a very good fighter if he had a chin. He just doesn't have a chin. Ferreira and Stoltzfus, though, is such a clash of styles. I can talk about their previous fights, but I can keep it this simple to you. Dustin Stoltzfus will be the better grappler, and Bruno Ferreira will be the better striker. Who implements their game better? I think it's Bruno Ferreira. Why? Well, for one, Dustin Stoltzfus, for as good of a grappler as he is, he actually has been submitted more times than he's won by submission in the UFC. Adolfo Vieira and Jeremy Richard beat him by submission in the UFC. Okay, on top of that, Ferreira, his defensive wrestling should be decent enough. Stoltzfus will struggle a little bit in getting fights down. Usually it's, it's been a struggle for him to get fights to the mat. He did against Puna, but I don't know. He couldn't do it against Adolfo Vieira, Kyle Dawkins, I don't know. I think that's a problem, and also, Bruno Ferreira hits hard. He hits really hard. I think this is almost reminiscent of the Abus Magomedov fight, where it doesn't last very long. Bruno Ferreira cracks him early, and he puts him out early as well. There's a reason this fight's on the main card, is because the UFC, when they build main cards, and so far, the way I've been picking it, they're doing it right. They want finishes on the main card. Baeza, first round knockout. Marquez, second round knockout. Bruno Ferreira will be a first round knockout too. If not, it will be a Dustin Stoltzfus submission. So either way they get their finish, I'm taking Bruno Ferreira, and I wouldn't mind the under in this fight. It's probably 1.5. I don't mind that as well. But I do like Bruno Ferreira more. I think Ferreira wins the fight by first round knockout. I don't pick over-unders. I pick the winners of fights and who I think is going to, get the job done. I'm taking Bruno Ferreira to win the fight by first round knockout. We've got 3 fights left. We got the feature bout, the co-main event, and the main event. Next up is Rosas Jr. and Ricky Turcios. That fight was originally supposed to happen over at, was it UFC Noche? It might have been. No, it wasn't. No. Oh, Rosas fought at UFC Noche. It was the card in Mexico. Royval Moreno 2. I'll send you back to that video back in time. I was still in a dorm room and I could still talk back then. So you can get that. You'll hear me actually talk. It'll be a longer prediction, I think. I don't completely remember how long that portion of the video is, but I'll play that and I'll see you guys for the co-main event. Let's go to the next one here. Rosas Jr. is back. Don't forget, the guy's only 19 years old, taking on Ricky Turcios. Turcios is 12-3. He is 30 years old. He is 11 years older than Raul Rosas Jr. And Raul Rosas looked good in his last one, beating Terrence Mitchell. It was a fight that everyone kind of anticipated him to win and expected him to win. He was a -750 favorite in that fight. He won the fight by knockout in the first round. This is a step up in Ricky Turcios. Depends how Turcios fights. The Imavov Zahabi fight was just so bad out of Ricky Turcios. I know he comes back and beats Kevin Natividad in his last one by split decision, but he was supposed to beat Kevin Natividad, and he barely beats the guy. Natividad saw not that much success in the UFC. This guy was 0-3 in the promotion. He now fights in LFA yet again, and Turcios barely beats him. He gets dropped in the 3rd round, and he wins the first 2, sure. But Turcios, again, goes to the wrestling to win those 2 rounds. Natividad tries to take him down, but really on the ground, Turcios finds some success in the 1st and the 3rd. Which does propel him to win the fight. The 2nd round is the swing round, but the judges ended up giving Turcios the win 2-1. The Imavov Zahabi fight was just so confusing because Turcios doesn't do anything. He gets outstruck 2-1 in that fight, and he just kind of stands there and doesn't do anything, which was so weird because his fight over against Brady Hiestand in the Ultimate Fighter finale card was so good. He wins the Ultimate Fighter. It's a back and forth war on the feet. He beats Hiestand. He looks really good, and Hiestand has won 2 fights since then, and Turcios, is 1-1, which is fine, but I think Turcios just, I think he hasn't looked good since the Hiestand fight. The Natividad fight, sure, he wins. He didn't look all that great in the Kevin Natividad fight. He was supposed to blow Natividad out of the water in that one, and he really didn't. He kept the fight competitive, and sure, he wins. Credit to him. But I just don't think Turcios is the same guy that we thought he was going to be out the Contender Series. The Ultimate Fighter. I thought he was going to be a really entertaining guy who's going to bring crazy fights on the feet. He really hasn't been all that. And Raul Rosas, I think, again, we need to weather our expectations on Raul Rosas. He's 19 years old. This is not a guy who, again, was talking a big game at one point, saying he was going to be the youngest UFC champion. He was going to go out there and beat Aljamain Sterling in his 5th fight. He wasn't able to do that, obviously. I mean, look at the guy who's 2-1 in the UFC, but again, he ran into a very tough Christian Rodriguez in his 2nd fight in the promotion. Rodriguez, who is 3-1, with his only loss being to JSP Jonathan Pierce, a guy who was very good in his own right, who did lose to Joe Anderson Brito, which is unfortunate, but still, Rosas has been fighting good guys. His 1 loss is against a very good fighter. The wins, Jay Perrin, Terrence Mitchell. I mean, again, not the best names, let's be honest. Both those guys probably will not see another fight in the UFC. Mitchell might, maybe, I don't know. But this is a step up because, again, Turcios is a UFC caliber guy. I don't really know if Perrin and Mitchell are really all that UFC caliber. This fight's going to be won and lost on the ground, though. This is a fight that is dependent on who the better wrestler is. I think it is Raul Rosas. I think Rosas is better down there. Striking-wise, I'm going to give it to Ricky Turcios. I know, again, Turcios is a mixed bag of results in the feet because you can either get the Turcios that showed up in the Brady Hiestand fight, or you can get the Turcios that showed up in the Imavov Zahabi fight. You can get a guy who's very, laid back and won't do anything, or a guy who's willing to go out there and really risk it all to win the fight. However, I think Rosas will see a lot of success on the ground. Again, the guy's only 19 years old, but he does that very well. He's a very good grappler who is going to give Turcios a lot of problems down there. I think if Raul Rosas is able to get him down, I think eventually he's actually going to find a submission. I think Rosas is able to win the fight by 2nd round sub. Sending the Mexican fighters, I know Rosas is born in the U.S. I believe he was born in the USA. I think he was. He was born in the USA, raised in the USA, trains in the USA, but UFC is going to market him as a Mexican fighter here, so in the UFC sense, we'll go to 8-1 in the Mexican fighters here. 8-1, 7-1. I'm losing track. It's fine. Just know it's pretty big margin for the Mexican fighters in this one. Rosas, a pretty sizable favorite, minus 260. Again, I think the grappling is going to be key in this one, and I think he is a better grappler than Ricky Turcios, and that's what's going to give him the victory. I'm not all that impressed with Turcios anymore. I'm really not. It sucks, because at one point I was. I think if Turcios is able to win, he's got to keep this fight standing, and he's got to really put it on Rosas on the feet. I just don't know if he's going to be able to do so. Give me Rosas Jr. to win the fight by second round submission. Okay, co-main event. Dominic Reyes is back, and he's taking on Dustin Jacoby. What do we expect out of Dominic Reyes here? Because, all right, it's another go at it. I'm glad this is not Carlos Ulberg. I'm very happy it's not. Ulberg's about to get Jamal Hill on the Conor McGregor undercard. I think Ulberg may be catching Jamal Hill at the right time. It might be the right time, because Jamal Hill just fought, and he's fighting right again. Ulberg hits hard. Jamal Hill probably won't wrestle him. I don't know. We'll get to that fight when we get there. I think Ulberg might be catching him at the right time. And then if Ulberg wins, don't be surprised if they do him and Pereira. I'm just saying. Ulberg is probably a fight away from the belt, and he might get there. I don't think he beats Pereira, but I'm just saying. Carlos Ulberg might be fighting for the World Championship by the end of the year. I don't know. Dominic Reyes, Dustin Jacoby, though, right? Reyes is another return for him. He's lost 4 in a row. Jones, Blachowicz, Prochazka. Okay, world champions. Ryan Spann. That's the one, though. Right? Jacoby's lost 3 of 4. The only win's a first-round knockout against Kennedy and Zejiku, though. I mean, did I ever think at any point in time when both these guys were in the UFC that Dustin Jacoby could beat Dominic Reyes? No. Now I can. Now this fight's presented to me, yeah. Dustin Jacoby will beat Dominic Reyes. He'll get it done in the first round. It's sad. I don't think Reyes beat John Jones. I think a lot of people thought he did. Personally, I thought Jones won the fight. But I understand it was very close. They probably should have done it again. They didn't do the rematch, obviously, right? Jones left the division. Reyes got Blachowicz instead, right? Thinking about it, Jones probably would have beat Reyes in a rematch. Definitely, I think. Just because, again, if that type performed against Jan Blachowicz, probably would have performed the same way against John Jones. Jones probably would have teep-kicked the hell out of his body. And it probably would have given him a lot of problems, right? Because that's kind of what Jan was more of, just a traditional body kick. But still, I think Jones would have given him problems as well with the body work, right? I just think, again, it's kind of that mindset from Reyes. You get so close to winning the world championship, beating John Jones, being that guy. You don't do it. And now look at where he's gone. Don't forget, the Yuri Prochazka fight was very close, and he knocked him out with an up kick. But Prochazka fell back into his guard and re-woke up a second later. It was too, you couldn't stop the fight off that. And Prochazka ends up spinning elbowing him. That's kind of where I don't think he's ever going to be the same. If he loses, it's 5 in a row. It might be it. I think I could see them giving him one more. But this isn't the fight for him. When Edmund Shabazian guys went on his losing streak, Edmund Shabazian's not the same guy, but at least they gave him AJ Dobson. It was a fight, guy who's, 1-2, coming off the contender. It's a fight that Shabazian can win. Why didn't they give Dominic Reyes someone like that? Why are we booking him against Ulberg and now Dustin Jacoby, who's still a top 15 guy? And again, I get it. He lost to Metafield, lost to Murzakanov, lost to Roundtree. Still, though, he hits hard, and he's a top 20-ish fighter. Why isn't Dominic Reyes fighting a guy like... There's some bad UFC light heavyweights still. I mean, what is I don't know if Misha Cirkunov's still in the UFC after his 5-fight losing streak, but why isn't he fighting Misha Cirkunov? Right? I'm trying to think of someone else that would kind of feel like you would be on his level, but yeah, Cirkunov feels like that type of fight. Tanner Bowser still in the UFC too. He beat Alexa Kamer. Tanner Bowser. There you go. You want to give him a striker? Let him fight Tanner Bowser. He's down at 205 pounds now. Those are the fights I wanted to see Reyes in. Not this. He's going to get cracked. He'll get chinned. He'll lose. Dustin Jacoby wins the fight by first round knockout. To the main event. Jared Cannonier, Nasruddin Imavov. Why is Cannonier an underdog? I kind of gave this away last week with our UFC 302 predictions. I'm picking Jared Cannonier. He's 40 years old. Yeah, I understand. He's coming off a torn knee. Sure. He's better than Nasruddin Imavov, though. The Jared Cannonier we saw in the Marvin Vettori fight is the best Jared Cannonier I've ever seen. I didn't watch the fight live. I was at Disneyland of all places. But Jared Cannonier, that's the best Jared Cannonier I've ever watched. Right? That was the best moment in his career. Better than the Brunson fight. Because even in the Brunson fight, he got dropped and knocked down. No, he beat the hell out of Vettori. He beat him in the wrestling too. He beat Sean Strickland 2 fights ago. I think Cannonier is getting screwed the most out of this entire thing. Yeah, Sean Strickland's getting screwed. And yes, did Strickland beat Cannonier? I think he did. But on paper, on record, Jared Cannonier beat Sean Strickland. When Marlon Moraes beat Jose Aldo and really, he beat him, but everyone thought Aldo won, Marlon Moraes was still given the fight against Corey Sandhagen for, if Moraes won, he would have skipped Aljamain Sterling in line and he would have got the fight PL3 on for the championship a couple years ago. Jared Cannonier beats Sean Strickland, who was number 1 contender now, former champion, beat Israel Adesanya. He beat Marvin Vettori, and now he's fighting even lower in the rankings, coming off of 2 straight wins. He's won 4 out of 5 fights. His only loss is to Israel Adesanya. You want to go all the way back? Jared Cannonier's won 7 of 9. His only 2 losses are Whitaker and Adesanya, and the problem is Cannonier is only getting older, though, and that's why Imavov is the favorite. It's because Jared is 40, and 40 at middleweight isn't really the most ideal thing. But Jared, to a certain extent, is still somewhat young in his UFC run, I would say, compared to some of these other guys. Yes, 16 fights is a lot. But in the middleweight division, he's only at 9. Before that, he fought light heavyweight and heavyweight before that. Cannonier was supposed to fight Roman Dolidze. He tore his MCL going in that fight. That's why Imavov fought Dolidze and beat him by majority decision. It was a good fight. Don't know how a judge scored that one for Dolidze. Whatever, or had it as a draw. Beats me. Oh, wait, but there's a point taken away, I think, right? Anyways, I picked Dolidze. Unfortunately, I did. Sure, Imavov looked good. But when you get a guy on the caliber of striking of Jared Cannonier, he's not going to look that good. Dolidze was horrible in that fight. He just was. Jared Cannonier, to a certain degree, I think will do the same thing Sean Strickland did to Nasruddin Imavov. Walk him down and put him on his back foot and just stay in his face. Because if that happens, Cannonier is going to give Imavov real trouble. And that's truly what I think happens in this fight. So we're going Jared Cannonier to win the fight by decision. I think it is a little similar to even the Cannonier-Gastelum fight. I think he'll drop him at some point, but I don't think he's going to be able to get the finish. Imavov is a very tough guy who's only been finished once in his entire MMA career. It came in his first ever fight where he lost by guillotine choke 5 minutes in. End of the first round. He's a very tough guy to finish. I don't think Cannonier is going to be the first guy to do it. But I do think Jared, again, this fight probably won't hit the mat. If anything, it will be Cannonier who does it, but I think it will be a straight striking fight, and in the straight striking fight, we're taking the killer gorilla, Jared Cannonier, to beat Nasruddin Imavov by unanimous decision. I'll go 50-45, 49-46. The only thing that is scaring me about Cannonier is that he is over the age of 40, but I'm taking Jared to win the fight by decision. Now, before we end this video, where does Jared go from here? It's a big problem. Because Sean says he's going to wait for the title shot, like he should. Sean Strickland should wait for the World Championship fight. The easiest fix is he shouldn't be fighting for the belt. The easiest fix is Adesanya should fight the winner of Whitaker-Chimaev. He should. Jared Cannonier, yeah, he should. He should fight the winner of Adesanya should fight the winner of Whitaker and Chimaev. And Jared Cannonier should fight the winner of Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis. They're not going to give Jared the title shot, though, unless he beats Whitaker, Chimaev, Strickland, Adesanya. He's not going to get it unless he beats one of those 4 guys. Because he's already beat number 5 in Vettori. I could also see him, though, they could give him Brendan Allen next. They can 100% do that. But he's number 4. He's going all the way down to fight number 8. His last fight, he beat number 5 in Vettori. He's beat number 1, Sean Strickland. What are we waiting for? A Whitaker rematch? Sure, he fought him back in 2020. That needs to happen. I'm kind of sick of the disrespect against Jared Cannonier after a all-time performance for his career that he put on in his last fight when he beat Marvin Vettori, who's a tough guy who, again, is almost impossible to knock out. But when he beat a tough guy like that in Marvin Vettori, the guy deserves to be fighting for a championship. If he can beat Nasruddin Imavov, he deserves to fight for a championship. Will he be fighting for a championship? Unfortunately, he will not. Because, again, Jared Cannonier as a pay-per-view headliner does nothing compared to Strickland, Duplessis, Adesanya, Chimaev, and Whitaker. It is what it is, but that's the game you got to play. Anyways, that's why Jared Cannonier's main eventing Louisville, Kentucky of all places, but we're taking the Killer Gorilla to win the fight in the KFC Yum Center. Jared Cannonier gets it done by unanimous decision. And folks, thank you all for watching our UFC Fight Night Louisville predictions here on the channel with, again, the Killer Gorilla, Jared Cannonier, and Nassourdine Imavov in the main event. We'll be back tomorrow for PFL Europe 2 predictions. Make sure to stay locked in the channel, folks. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Make sure to leave a comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. Make sure to leave a like if you do like the video. And again, I apologize for my voice being messed up, but again, I can't control the sickness. I'm trying my hardest, trust me. So, folks, thank you all for watching. Make sure to subscribe button down below for more. And Mamba, forever.